there are two schools of thought when assessing the Miami Hurricanes. And I typically see this in online circles. And the schools of thought usually are, well, they're just so talented that at some point they have to break through and they have to get back to what they were, or in part of what they were in the early 2000s and 90s and 80s when they were a dynasty and an NFL factory. And the other school of thought is they just haven't done this in a while and they're never going to do that, as in be elite again. It seems to be the main camps in relationship to Miami. And the one camp, the U camp, the one talking about Miami as if every year they're going to be back, well, a lot of that's Miami fans. And the other camp are a lot of non-Miami fans. And here am I, not a Miami fan. I'm sitting here in the middle, and I look at this roster and I think to myself, well, they added a lot in the portal. I think they're clearly uncomfortable in some areas, but also they added a fair amount in the portal last year and had a really good team, and they clearly know what they're doing on the offensive line. They're clearly comfortable at defensive end. They made, I think, a fantastic hire at defensive coordinator this preseason in Corey Heatherman. And for a team that finished 10-3, 6-2, and was oh so close to getting to the college football playoff, I want to talk about this team and honestly assess whether I think they could be better than they were last year or whether they will be worse. I think there's an outcome for either of those options that's realistic. Miami could be better than they were last year. I don't think they'll be better on offense, but the defense, if it really comes together and Beck is healthy and works out at quarterback, and the run game is a Miami Mario Cristobal style run game, and it was at times last year, then this unit can be a game-controlling tank, and they can reach the playoffs, and they can win the ACC, and they can even, when it's supposed to be Clemson's year, they can usurp Clemson. There's also the fact that if Beck, well, isn't healthy, and the defense needs more than a year to at least become a top 25-esque unit, and the wide receiver core, after losing as much as it did, just doesn't pan out, well, this team can go under their preseason win total of 8.5, and the year would be considered a failure. Before we dive deep into Miami, and I give you my analysis of this team, and more specifically what their spring portal additions tell us for what their quality of team is for 2025, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, hit the notification bell, comment your record prediction for Miami, for the Hurricanes this year, and tell me whether you think they'll make the college football playoff and how you would peg their odds of winning the national championship. Thank you so much, and let's dive into it. Let's get to it. So when I look at Miami, this team finished 10-3, 6-2 in the ACC. They had a lot of good moments last year, but also a lot of ugly. A lot of close wins that shouldn't have been close wins with the talent they had versus the talent on the opposing sideline, with the coaching staff and head coach they had versus the head coaches and coaching staffs on the opposing sideline. I'm not the biggest Cristobal fan when it comes to game management especially, but he's a much better head coach than Brent Pry and Justin Wilcox. And the fact that they almost lost to Virginia Tech and Cal was a little bit damning, I'm not going to lie. So that was bad, but the way they opened up against Florida was impressive. The ceiling at times that they showed throughout the year on offense was very, very impressive. They had the best offense in America last year, and that's a big deal with Shannon Dawson entering his second year with Miami in 2024, now his third year. That's a hire that's panned out, an offensive coordinator hire that's panned out, and with Miami's resources, I expect him to stay there for quite some time. They figured out offense, Miami has, and with Alex Mirabal on the offensive line and with Cristobal being an elite recruiter, especially more of an offensive line guy than other head coaches, it's not exactly surprising in hindsight, but hindsight's 2020. Defensively is where they have to figure some things out, and this is where the players that return and the key portal additions, I think, paint the picture for this year. Because Heatherman, I think, is good. I think he's a young, upcoming name who can cement himself this year and the year after this season, 2026, if he improves Miami's defense. But he's also a coordinator change, and if the players don't change, if the development doesn't change, that can also cause issues. So let's look at what Miami brings back. Overall, but also especially on defense, and also look at their transfer additions. They return 57% of their 2024 production. They have the number 3 portal class in America entering 2025. When I look at Miami's roster, I'm not going to kid you when I say this. This is, straight face, I'm serious. If I laugh or smile, it's because I'm surprised. I think Clemson's the best team in the ACC, but I will tell you, I think Miami's is the most talented, I think, now from a high school standpoint, and adjusting that to, it's kind of hard to put it, but adjusting it to a lot of players that Clemson's brought in, a lot have panned out, but some also haven't. And Clemson hasn't used the portal a bunch. They also haven't lost a lot to the portal. But Miami's rapidly improving, and I don't feel like Clemson's doing that. I feel like Clemson's the best team in the ACC this year because they have a good staff, because Sweeney still is at least a good coach, although he's been disappointing, and they have the best QB in America, and they have the most returning production. But if you were to hold many of those things equal, the returning production in particular, I would say that Miami is more balanced and that Miami is more talented. Now, I don't think that'll translate this year to them likely being the best team or the team in the ACC that has the best odds to win it all, so at least it may not translate to them having the highest ceiling, but I think that their floor is higher than a lot of people think. And I think that returning your 2 tackles, Francis Mauigoa and Markel Bell, certainly help out with that. Georgia had issues on the offensive line last year. Part of that was their O-line as it was. Another part was their very tough schedule. And the tougher the schedule, especially with a position like the O-line where injuries are common, you can get messed up there. Miami, while having a tougher schedule than last year, hosting Florida, hosting Notre Dame, those will be 2 big games, and also they have to travel to SMU and host Louisville. I think those 4 are your top 25 teams that Miami will play. It's not a Georgia-level schedule. And Beck, working under Shannon Dawson, who I think is superior to Mike Bobo, and being able to rest and really have kind of a reset behind Mauigoa, who had a 71 PFF grade, played for almost 1,000 snaps last year, 914, and he had a 72.7 pass blocking grade and a 68.1 run blocking grade, which is good. It's respectable. And Bell had a 61 PFF grade, only 63.6 pass blocking grade with just under 600 snaps, 544 total snaps last year. I think it's a good tackle situation, a really good one, and I believe that Mauigoa could be the number 1 tackle in America this year. So that helps the offense. And I also will tell you that at running back, just very briefly, I think that Mark Fletcher Jr., Jordan Lyle, an incoming transfer from North Dakota State, Chamar Brown, those are all ACC-level running backs. Miami could have the deepest running back room in America this year. I don't think they have the best running back. I don't think they have the best running back room because the 1-2 punch matters more than the third stringer. And Penn State, Notre Dame, Oregon, Minnesota, there's other teams I could list who are better, like even Louisville and Georgia Tech probably, who are better than Miami there. But Miami's depth at running back is crazy good. And that with James Brockermeyer coming in at center, I think you give Beck a pretty favorable situation to command the offense. You look at the defense, and Miami actually had a good freshman corner last year. Despite all the struggles in their secondary, they had a bright spot. O.J. Frederick Jr., freshman last year, will be a sophomore this year. He had a 76.2 PFF grade, 30 tackles, tackle for loss, a pick, and 7 passes defended. And then on the defensive line, you have 2 DNs, 2 edge players, and Ruben Bain Jr. was this big guy, like 270 pounds, 79.8 PFF grade, 5.5 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks to QB hurry. He didn't play as much as he did in 2023, didn't put the same numbers, but he's an All-American caliber player. And then Akeem Mesidor, 32 tackles, 9 TFLs, 5.5 sacks, and 2 QB hurries. He's a huge returning player, almost said addition. We'll get to David Blay Jr., who I think is the big addition on the defensive line. And then some transfer additions that I think really, they make the finishing touches to the picture that will be Miami's 2025 season. Carson Beck, who 28 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, had a rushing touchdown, 3,485 passing yards. If he can be the average of his career, or he can be 2023 Carson Beck. This Miami offense will once again be top 10 with Josiah Trader ready to step up and CJ Daniels transferring in with 480 receiving yards from LSU. I mainly want to talk about the defensive additions, though. Defensive tackle David Blay Jr. had 2 QB hurries, 6.5 sacks, 10.5 TFLs, and a 73.5 PFF grade. Miami is thin at defensive tackle this year. They are thin there, but Justin Scott is someone who I think can step up. Ahmad Moten is good there, and adding in Blay at least gives them a player where they can bring in a third guy when the second or first guy gets tired, or if an injury happens, the starting defensive tackles won't totally drop off. That was a smart move. I love that they added Mohamed Toure from Rutgers, who when healthy is good. And then you look at their safeties, Zachariah Poyser, Jacoby Thomas, and then corner Xavier Lucas and Charles Brantley, who were added. Love their additions. I think this Miami secondary is going to be much better than it was last year. Brantley and Lucas had PFF grades in the high 70s. Lucas had a sack, 1.5 TFLs, a pick, and 2 passes defended as a true freshman at Wisconsin. Brantley had 3 picks, a pick 6, and 7 passes defended at Michigan State, and he will be the nickelback for this team, projected according to the Miami depth chart, with O.J. Frederick Jr. and Xavier Lucas being the 2 corners. When I look at this team and when I did my research and graded the staff, it's one of the better staffs in the ACC, by the way, and including Notre Dame in that mix, so that makes it look even better. I love the talent they have. I love the picture this paints as well. There are questions, don't get me wrong. I think wide receiver, and I would think safety is a question too, because looking at Poyser, who's coming from the G5, and Jacoby Thomas, who wasn't graded all that well from Tennessee, the secondary is not going to be perfect. I don't think the defense will be perfect in year one after the mess that Lance Guidry left it in. And then the wide receiver room loses a ton. But with the talent they have, with the development they have, I know they lost Aaron Feld, their strength and conditioning coach, but I imagine Miami's big enough to rebound from that. I love the picture that's painted here. I think Miami is going to be a undervalued team. I know that almost going to forget his name. He's on the Cover 3 podcast. There's Bud Elliott, Chip Patterson, Tom Fornelli, and then who's the other guy? Oh, Danny Cannell. Danny Cannell thinks that Miami is going to have a massive drop-off this year. Not quite Florida State bad, but probably as close as you could get from Miami. I'm probably much closer to the opposite end of the spectrum compared to him. I'm not quite on the opinion that some may have where, oh my gosh, Miami's going to win it all. They're a top 5 team. No. And some people probably think that, but I haven't heard many, if any, who say that. I think, though, that Miami is a team who's going to go over their win total of 8.5 in the preseason. And, oh my gosh. My bad for this. I forgot to change the conference odds and national title odds for the regular season. So just ignore those. But Miami is in second place for preseason ACC championship odds, and it's the same for preseason national championship odds. I know that. Forgot to edit it in. It's my bad. But also just know they're only behind Clemson. And Clemson's ahead in a somewhat decent margin in title odds, but in ACC championship odds, Miami's pretty close. Miami is viewed as Vegas as one of the better teams in America. I think their questions relate to overall, can they compensate for how much production's going out the window? Are they in a position to reload, if at all? And can Heatherman fix the defense, and how quickly can he do that? I love Carson Beck when he's healthy and when he's engaged. I love the depth at running back. Their O-line will be one of the best in America. I think their D-end group will be one of the best in America. D-tackle just has some questions for them. And then I like linebacker and corner. You just need 2 of the 3 corners who are currently projected to start to pan out, and this secondary will be much better. On top of that, they added in 40 new faces to this roster, and the average rank per composite commit for the 2025 class, including the transfers, was a 90.27. So top 15 class incoming on top of a class that for the 2024 cycle was top 5, with 25 4 stars this year, 14 3-stars. There's a lot to like about this roster. And looking through the schedule, you got Notre Dame in week 1 at home, Bethune-Cookman week 2, USF week 3, Florida week 4, a bye in week 5, Florida State on the road week 6, bye in week 7, Louisville week 8 at home, Stanford at home in week 9, SMU on the road in week 10, Syracuse and NC State back-to-back home games week 11 and 12, and back-to-back road trips late in the year at Virginia Tech and at Pittsburgh. Miami has some trap games. Like, I think Pittsburgh and Virginia Tech could be trap games. I think SMU and Louisville are losable games. I think that Florida and Notre Dame are losable games. But in all of those games, whether it's home field advantage, whether it's returning experience, whether it's roster talent, Miami, I think, should be favored in every one of their games. Should. Doesn't mean they'll win. But in every one of their games, I think they will be the better team, at least at the end of the year. That Florida game's tricky. I can see Florida starting out the year better, but finishing the year worse. For anyone else, given where they are at the schedule, I can't see that. So this is a team who should win 10 games, once again, in the regular season. And with Notre Dame on the schedule, 10-2 this year is going to be looked at in a much more favorable way by the playoff committee than 10-2 would have last year, because you have that Notre Dame game. And I think that this ACC schedule is tougher as well. This is a team where I think 10-2 is very possible. In fact, I would say it's likely. And that means a potential playoff berth, a shot at the ACC championship, and that should be Miami's goal this year. The expectation for this team, when I look at the roster and when I analyze it and observe it, is they should expect to reach the playoff. If Miami doesn't reach the playoff this year, the season is a surefire disappointment. Surefire. The only way the season is a success is if they make the playoff and then don't embarrass themselves in the playoff. Or maybe if they embarrass themselves in the playoff, they got to win the ACC and at least be the best in that conference. And that would be huge. Cristobal would be the first Miami coach to win the ACC, which is sad. It's wrong, actually, I would say. Miami's a much better program than many others in the ACC who've won the conference. That's my analysis overall of Miami, and thank you for tuning into that. Make sure to subscribe, hit the bell, and also comment your thoughts on Miami Hurricanes football down below, and like the video to give us a boost in the algorithm. I think the most likely record for Miami is, I'm going to say about 11-1, 10-2. I could see 12-0, and I think 12-0 is more likely than 8-4. And then 9-3 is that weird limbo. I don't know if 9-3 is more likely than 12-0 or 12-0 more likely than 9-3. I'm pretty high on Miami this year. And I think especially as the year goes on, they're going to get better. And then there's the juxtaposition to where at the beginning of the year they have their toughest game. But Notre Dame also loses a lot. And Notre Dame has to travel south. And Notre Dame is starting a quarterback who's never taken a collegiate pass or snap before. And Miami is starting a veteran in Carson Beck, who I think looks to be healthy. So the schedule, it's tougher than last year's, but still plays to their advantage. And I think with Corey Heatherman and Shannon Dawson paired up, that's a great coordinator duo. I am very excited to watch Miami football this year, and I think they're going to surprise a lot of people. And I'll come out and say it right now, I think they're going to make the college football playoff.